First, I'd like to welcome Jason Daswell as a City of Milton firefighter. He's going to lead us in invocation.
Let's pray. Heavenly gracious Father, Lord, we thank you for this wonderful evening. Father, we ask that you'll be with us now, Lord. Be with the mayor and the council and the residents of this wonderful city, Lord. Lead, guide, direct them, Lord, in the decisions that are going to be made here tonight. Continue your blessings upon the mayor and the council and the residents of this wonderful city, and continue blessings upon each worker in this city. In your son's precious holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, March 15th, 2010 to order. Will the clerk please call the roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will be happy to call roll for the March 15th, 2010 regular meeting. However, I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Additionally, those attending the meeting who would like to provide public comment, either during the public hearings or during the call for public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on an item. There is no public comment for consent agenda items or items under first presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards were received by the city clerk staff prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization, if applicable. When you hear the bell, you have 30 seconds to complete your remarks. The City Council may allow public comment on either an agenda item or general public comment from the representative of such an organized group or association, provided, however, that such an individual shall file a notarized affidavit that they have the authority to speak on behalf of said organization on a form provided by the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue of any person speaking. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you will expect to receive yourself. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Thurman. Here. Councilmember Julie Zonner-Bailey. Here. Councilmember Bill Luss.
Here.
Councilmember Bert Hewitt.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Longoria.
Here.
Councilmember Alan Tart.
Here.
Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank everyone for being here. Welcome to the City of Milton. Will our City Clerk please sound the next item?
Next item is approval of meeting agenda, agenda item number 10-1071.
I've got several modifications to ask for on this agenda. Number one is to remove from first presentation item 1, which is agenda item 10-1078 dealing with historic preservation. The second request is to take item 2 that's in first presentation, which relates to chapter 7, and move it to the work session of April 19th. I'd like to add a new business, an emergency addition to this agenda, the resolution of the City of Milton, Georgia, enacting a moratorium for 60 days to bar the acceptance of applications for conditional use permits for telecommunications facilities and all zoning classifications. And also, just as a matter of cleaning up so that people know when we're going to talk about it, I would like to defer the one published staff report we have until staff reports at the meeting 1 week from tonight, being March 22nd.
Okay. Is there any other items that need to be considered? Okay. Do I have a motion and a second on the approval of the meeting agenda as amended by staff?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as amended by staff.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion by Councilmember Thurman, second by Councilmember Bailey. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, the next item is public comment. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. There is no discussion on items on the consent agenda or first presentation from the public or from council. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk. Please remember, this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward, speak into the microphone stating your name and address for the record. You'll have 5 minutes for remarks. And just to clarify, this the initial public comment is for any item that's not on today's agenda, and then if you have public comment for one of the applications we have tonight, that would be done at the presentation of the application. So do we have any general public comment?
No public comment, sir.
Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. The city clerk, please read those items.
First item is approval of the February 8th, 2010 work session meeting minutes, agenda item number 1072. Second, approval of the February 17th, 2010 regular meeting minutes, agenda item number 1073. Our third item is approval of financial statements for the period ending February 2010, agenda item number 1074. Fourth, approval of a contract between the City of Milton and Advanced Processing and Imaging, agenda item number 1075. Our fifth item is approval of a contract between the City of Milton and AT&T, agenda item number 1076. Our sixth and final item is approval of a contract for the reconstruction of the Canterbury Lane cul-de-sac, agenda item number 1077.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
I'll second it. I have a motion by Councilmember Luss, second by Councilmember Hewitt to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Next, we'll move to reports and presentations. Will the city clerk please sound the items?
A proclamation recognizing Arbor Day.
Please, Lynn, are you going to make that presentation, or I'll be glad to do it. Mark, is Mark here? I'll be glad to go ahead and go.
Happy to take it. Thank you, sorry about that.
That's all right.
Happy to be here. Proclamation for Arbor Day. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed through the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas the Tree City USA program, sponsored by the National Arbor Day Foundation, provides direction, technical assistance, public attention, and national recognition for urban and community forestry programs in thousands of towns and cities that more than 93 million Americans call home. And whereas the City of Milton has been recognized as a Tree City in 2010, and whereas trees are among Milton's most beautiful natural resources and bestow fine opportunities for aesthetic appreciation and are indispensable to our ecology as providers of wildlife habitat, erosion control, air filters, moderators of temperature, and noise inhibitors, and whereas, as citizens of Milton, we enjoy the beauty and benefits of our natural environment, which increases property values, enhances the economic vitality of business areas, and whereas it is the responsibility of each of us to safeguard this environment and make choices that have a positive impact on our environment and the world in which we live. And whereas the City of Milton and our citizens are committed to the observation and stewardship of our natural resources, and now, therefore, we, the Mayor and Council of the City of Milton, hereby recognize and proclaim the third Saturday in March as Milton Arbor Day, and urge all citizens to support efforts to protect our trees and our environment, and make Milton an even greater place to live, work, and raise a family. And further, we urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations.
Thank you, Lynn, and I would like to ask the council to step forward with me and be okay, Chris, if we present it to Lynn?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Didn't either.
With the tree committee, you want to enjoy? Thank you.
Ticket 41,
Yes.
Arnold Mill Road,
On Saturday from 10 to 12.
Saturday from 10 to 12, details on.
On, on Saturday from 10 to 12, the City of Milton will be having an Arbor Day event. We are going to give the award and hoist the flag at the fire station for the Tree City USA. We'll also be planting trees at the fire station, front and back. And there's going to be bare pine trees, there you go, bare trees. Seedlings for everyone. So if you want to go out and get a free tree and meet people in your community, it'd be a great opportunity on Saturday from 10 to 12.
The items on the first presentation were removed under the approval of the meeting agenda, so I'm going to move on to the zoning agenda. Will the city clerk please read the zoning rules and sound the next item?
At the second regularly scheduled meeting of the month, the mayor and city council consider a zoning agenda. These items include rezoning petitions, modifications of zoning, use permits, and associated concurrent variances, in addition to ordinances, resolutions, and text amendments. The petitions will be heard in the sequence listed on the posted agenda. I would like to acquaint you with some of the rules and procedures for this meeting. The applicant, and all those speaking in support of an application, will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. The opposition will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present its position. If time remains, the opposition will be allowed to rebut. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks, provided time remains with the allotted time. The city clerk staff will be keeping track of time and will inform you periodically of the remaining time for your presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards were received by the city clerk staff prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization, if applicable, before beginning the presentation. The Planning Commission heard the rezoning agenda items, and recommendations have been forwarded to the mayor and city council for consideration and disposition. In addition, the applicant shall not submit material to the council during the meeting unless requested to do so. All material that you wish to be reviewed by the council in consideration of your application should be submitted to the staff of the Department of Community Development to be included in the normal distribution of packages to the council. When an opponent of a rezoning action has made within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of the rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating $250 or more to a local governmental agency of the local government which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the respective local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of the relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and you have not filed a disclosure prior to the Planning Commission meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone else speak for your point of view. Our first item is RZ 10-01, VC 10-01, 3105 Bethany Bend, southeast corner of Bethany Bend and Highway 9, by D Squared Development LLC, to rezone from AG1 Agricultural and C1 Community Business to C1 Community Business to develop a 2,400 square foot gas station with 5 pump islands at a density of 2,755.45 square feet per acre. The applicant is also requesting a concurrent variance to reduce the 20-foot landscape strip to 10 feet along Bethany Bend, section 64-1090A. This is agenda item number 1063, which was first presented on March 1st, 2010.
And Ms. Tully, if you'll let me jump in here for a second. Tonight we've got a two different applications, and I see we've got a lot of people here. Our typical meeting rules allow for, as the clerk said, for 10 minutes discussion, both positive or negative towards the application. I certainly want to hear from everyone here that would like to speak, and with the permission of council, I will certainly, if it looks like we've got more people to speak within the 10 minutes, I'll be glad to extend that time. But that being said, I'd like to ask that everybody use that time respectfully, and if there's several people saying the same thing, if you wouldn't repeat each other, but just come up and confirm that you want to make the same statement. So, moving on. Go ahead. Lynn?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I believe that you all are fairly familiar with the site at the southeast corner of Bethany Bend and Highway 9. I will skip then to the standards of review. The first of which is whether or not the proposal can permit a use that is suitable in view of the use and development of adjacent property and nearby property. The commercial uses do exist at the intersection. Those uses have been developed and include the required development standards. Proposed gas station at 2,400 square foot in size is not suitable based on the small size of the parcel, a potential for cut-through traffic on the site between Bethany Bend and Highway 9, and in addition, the applicant has requested a concurrent variance for the landscape strip along Bethany Bend. Number two, whether or not the proposal will adversely affect the existing use or usability of adjacent or nearby property. In staff's opinion, the proposed use is too expensive on such a small site, including the gas pumps, parking, and area for gas tankers to deliver fuel. In addition, staff is concerned with the potential of spillover lighting to nearby single-family residences to the east and north during the evening hours. Further, no access is shown to the undeveloped property to the south as required. Number three, whether the property to be affected by the proposal has a reasonable economic use as currently zoned. The subject site may have a reasonable use as currently zoned with a smaller building and circulation footprint. Number four, whether this proposal will result in a use in which will or could cause an excessive or burdensome use of existing streets, transportation facilities, utilities, or schools. Staff does not anticipate a significant impact on public services and utilities. However, the nature of the intersection of Highway 9 and Bethany Bend is currently problematic, and accessing the subject site will be challenging. Number five, whether this proposal is in conformity with the policies and intent of the land use plan. The subject site is a prominent corner of the city and is designated in the plan as neighborhood living and working. Staff contemplates that the proposed development will not contribute towards a safe pedestrian-friendly area based on the lack of space to provide a beauty strip along Highway 9 between the curb and sidewalk. Further, the proposed development is inconsistent with the following plan policies: to encourage development that is sensitive to the overall setting of the community and contributes to our community's character and sense of place, to encourage development of a balanced network of commercial activity centers to meet the service needs of our citizens while avoiding unattractive and inefficient strip development, and to create gateways and corridors to establish a sense of place for our community. In addition, the comprehensive transportation plan indicates that Bethany Bend and Highway 9 intersections are to be improved with adding an eastbound and westbound through lane along Bethany Bend. Number six, whether there are other existing or changed conditions affecting the use and development of the property which give supporting grounds for approval or disapproval of the proposal. Staff notes that there are no gas stations or convenience stores along Highway 9 within the city limits. Based on the small size and location, within an acute triangle, limited and difficult access from both Bethany Bend and Highway 9, staff is of the opinion that these conditions support grounds for disapproval of the proposed gas station and convenience store. And number seven, whether the zoning proposal will permit a use which can be considered environmentally adverse to the natural resources, environment, and cities of Milton, and citizens of the city of Milton, The proposed use and intensity of the development may adversely affect the environment and the citizens of the city. Therefore, it is staff's conclusion and recommendation of denial for RC 10-01 and BC 10-01 to rezone to C1 community business to develop a gas station with recommendations which are included in the staff report. I would like to add the Planning Commission recommendation was for denial for both the rezoning and variance that was concurrent. During the discussion, items that they included in discussion were the number of times a week that fuel is delivered, traffic and conflicts on site. Also, that was strongly considered regarding the need for the fifth pump, as well as potential to design the site without a concurrent variance. Commissioners did express that the use was too intensive for the size and shape of the property. I would like you to note that since that time, the applicant has submitted a revised site plan dated February 26, 2010. This site plan does indicate including the 20-foot landscape strip along Bethany Bend, as is the requirement. Further, they have requested to withdraw VC 10-01 for the landscape strip, and they have reduced the building footprint from 2,400 square feet to 2,000 square feet, and have reduced the pumps from 5 to 4 pumps. Development using this site plan would eliminate any need for the variance. And that is my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Is there any questions? Obviously, we'll have time to discuss this after presentations from those in support or not in support of this application, but is there any specific questions before we move forward to staff? Council? Okay. I'll first allow those speaking in support of this application.
Mr. President, I might just take a moment more time to start running and asking questions of you. As decided, based on review and comment, based on dialogue that came out of the Planning Commission, based on the data that was given to us by which to make any modification and amend the application. We dropped the variance and made a number of other modifications and amendments. Your staff has sometime had an opportunity to take a review and analysis of the modified and amended application with what I think is substantial change. In addition to that, the Planning Commission did not have benefit of being able to look at the modified and amended application. We're here to obviously do whatever the brothers and council is this evening. If you want me to do for make a presentation, happy to. On the other hand, I didn't know whether there was something for review and analysis by staff and the redirection of the Planning Commission.
I would like to get staff's opinion on that with what's been resubmitted.
Yes, sir. The resubmittal is a significant departure from the original. The Planning Commission has not had benefit of reviewing these particular changes. A lot of their discussion did hinge on the density and intensity, particularly of the site on this particular parcel. So I feel it would benefit them to hear this and review it, as well as the Design Review Board, as they originally didn't have a lot to work with in the way of elevations, this being a concept plan. I know that the applicant has also worked on trying to compare a concept that would be pleasing visually.
Okay. Well, no matter what the council decides, we certainly need to allow everyone to speak. So let's fill out a speaker card and go ahead and present. So I'll leave that up to you, Mr. Hendricks, if you want to. Not sure, Mr. City Attorney, how that would, if he needs to present it based on the application or
I think that the applicant can present whatever the applicant wants to present to the city based upon the fact that they have proposed something different. I suspect he'll want to present to you on what they have proposed that is different this time. But that'll be up to the applicant.
Okay. If you want to speak for a few minutes, you're welcome to do so on that.
I'll take all my time. I don't have this opportunity at home. I just right ahead with my presentation. I submitted to you all on the 8th of March
Mayor, just a point of order, we need to start the clocks. We are running one, we just, do you have the remote, City, for?
I'm using this.
Okay, we've got a clock running. Do you have the remote to start the?
Yeah, because I think council is.
It would be good to have that way, but applicant can on this time.
As another point of order, just to be clear, we are having a formal public hearing that is now being recorded for the public record, is that correct? Just to be sure we're all very clear about what's about to proceed.
No, we're allowing everyone to speak.
Right.
You all have your clock.
So you got the clock. Correct me, you do have the clock running. So is that You're doing the time, but we need to allow for the time that we've been discussing this for the applicant, so. Go ahead, Mr. Yeah, let's start the time. Just go ahead and start the time, we'll give you the...
St. Henry's practice law, 6855 Forest Drive, Sandy Springs. The application has been submitted in addition to the modified and amended site plan on the 8th of March, a point-by-point recital of what Lynn went through with you on her 7 points of consideration with a view towards the modified and amended application. Significantly, the modified and amended application has gotten rid of the request for the concurrent variance. There's full and complete compliance with all of your development standards, to and including the Highway 9 overlay. Not only the overlay way it exists right now, but we've also been prospective and looked at what is in the hopper for potential modification and amendment, and we're in sync with all of that. Significantly, what we have done is to get rid of one of the 3 islands. That takes it from 6 pumps down to 4 pumps. We have reduced the size of the convenience store from 2,400 square feet to 2,000 square feet. That gives a density of 2,296 square feet to the acre. If you look at page 9 of your staff review and analysis, that is considerably lower than any of the other C1 square footages that are set forth for analysis by your staff. Your comprehensive development plan calls for live-work neighborhood on this property, and live-work neighborhood encourages low-density commercial, and certainly at 2,296 square feet to the acre, we feel that that in fact is low-density commercial. The other part of amendment that has come from the revised site plan, we have shown how there will be a tree line coming along Bethany Bend, a tree line coming along Highway 9, to give visual protection as far as the filling station is concerned. As staff has noted, you have got existing C1 zonings directly across with the CVS, the Publix over here, and in contiguous and to the south of us is an approximate 5-acre tract that similarly is zoned to the C1 classification. A concern was raised by the neighborhood as to perhaps light spillage. You all have benefit. There has been submitted as part of the record the light study that was done in order to be able to give confirmation that there is not any adverse light spillage that can come from the property. The property also has had an analysis as far as turning movement is concerned of the tanker trucks that would come into the property. Most recently, we also had visitation with your fire department in order to be able to give confirmation that your fire vehicles would be able to properly negotiate the property so that there would not be any thwarted effort for public safety over inability of fire to be able to get to and from the property. As far as the traffic is concerned, we've had a traffic review and analysis traffic report. Abdul's here this evening to be responsive to any questions you might have. I think uniquely with the service station, you've got the good opportunity to have captured passer-by traffic as a lot of the traffic that comes and goes from the facility, as opposed, for example, to a restaurant that would be by and large 99% destination-oriented. So a lot of the comings and goings that would be from the traffic to the property, as I say, would be captured passerby. It is estimated that just basically on a sales tax as well as an employee tax basis, there would be an annual generation of about $500,000 to the city. In addition to that, the projected number of employees that would be coming to the property would be 6 to 8. And that does not include whatever your real property taxes would be with the improvements having been completed on the property. I have got Brad Riffle here from AEW who would be able to walk you through with specificity as to the turning movement analysis that we've done. You've also had
You have 30 seconds, please.
I'm sorry?
30 seconds, please.
Out of 10 minutes?
Yeah, what's happening to our clock here?
We've got 4 applicants, so dividing
No.
by 10.
Well, this applicant would have the full 10 minutes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr.
Okay, all right. We also have presented to you a schematic of the elevation of what the property would look like. You have the unique opportunity here of the owner of the property to continue to be the owner of the property and therefore financially be able to do the building that has been demonstrated to you, which is all brick, all four sides, actually articulation along the front of the building, dormers above the top of the building. You see the canopy, elevated canopy treatment for the filling station islands. The door areas where the dumpster pickup would be, as well as the ignition, have purposefully been designed to give a look and feel of barn doors. And you've got your four-board fencing that would be placed along Highway 9 as well as Bethany Bend Road. And this is being done with a view towards a welcoming environment that the staff was talking to as far as the policy and intent is concerned. The other part of the policy intent that staff spoke to was as to delivering a diversification of commercial uses within the area. And staff went on to note that through an examination and evaluation of Highway 9, that there are not any other filling stations noted along Highway 9. So with the approval of this application, that would bring a diversification of use and services to the area under the commercial district. Brad, if you could take just a minute and walk them through the turning movements on the property.
The first sheet after on Brad Riffle with AEC, 50 Warm Spring Circle. The first one is of the gas delivery truck, and it shows the truck coming in from the south on Highway 9, entering the right in, right out on Highway 9, making its way to the front of the building where the tanks will be, basically at the front of the building underneath the parking spaces, and then it makes the movement to head out on left onto Bethany Bend, exiting the site that way. The second sheet after that, the third sheet, is the fire department truck, which is, I used the longest ladder truck, which my program shows it about 46 feet. Fire department guy said normally the trucks are about 30 feet, so I used a super long one. In getting with the fire department today, they said that they would be coming from the north and turn on Bethany Bend here, heading south, entering the site. The fire hydrant that they'll be tapping into is just to the south of our site. It's 60 feet south across there from Oak New Trace. So they'd be turning in, and then they'd probably back up a little bit. They'd be able to extend their hose, get to the hydrant, and then extinguish the fire. She said they'd probably have two different options. They could either back out on the Bethany Bend and then head north, or you can see I've made the motion where they can come all the way through the site and then turn right onto Highway 9 heading north.
Thank you. Reserve the rest of our time. How much time do we have?
Here, I'm going to keep the time for the purposes of the zoning agenda tonight. There's 3 minutes and 6 seconds remaining in the 10 minutes.
Okay.
Do we have anybody other than the applicant that's speaking?
Do we have anybody else that's speaking?
We have Mehdi Janatka.
I'm the applicant.
Sure. And Mr. Hendricks, or if the applicant would like to speak now or reserve that time? Okay. All right. Is there anyone in opposition to this rezoning?
Yes, sir. First, we have Lance Large.
Now what I'll do is I'll just update you at the end of each speaker as to the time remaining.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Lance Large. I live at 13770 Belterre Drive in this Belterre subdivision right off Bethany Bend Road. I'm here speaking as a local resident. I'm also here speaking as a professional engineer. I've been practicing professional engineering for over 30 years, and in that time I've done developments as large as 1,500-acre mixed-use developments all the way down to a 3/4 acre out parcel development. I've been working with this group here, again, as a local neighbor and concerned of the integrity of the area, and kind of speaking more towards the technical aspects of the plan. I realize that, this is a rezoning, it's not a use. There's 45 or so uses that this developer could put on. Not that all of them would fit on this property, but could be put on this piece of property. Since they have submitted a site plan specific to the application, I'd like to speak towards a few of the items. I agree, there have been significant changes made in the plans since the one that was presented to the Planning Commission. I also spoke at the Planning Commission meeting as well. I think some of the changes they made are positive. They reduced their islands, the number of islands. They were trying to put way too many islands on this site. Their canopy, they reduced the size of their canopy because of the number of islands. They say they have reduced the size of the building, although I would like to point out that now has appeared what they call an emission stall. And if you look on their elevations, this emission stall is physically part of their entire building. It's not like it's some out little piece of stall or something. To me, that represents 330 square feet. If you count that, I believe that square footage should be counted in their square foot declaration for the facility. It's a use within the facility, and that the total declaration should be 2,300 or so square feet, and the parking ratio should be counted off of that number of square footage. There are a few things I would say basically somewhat of a problematic site plan. I've designed for Exxon, for Amoco, for BP, for a sister company of Quick Trips Wawa up north, and done numerous sites. I was back in the day doing gas stations in every corner, and then I watched them close them up as well. Here, the parking spaces that they're using towards their 10 spaces that they're saying they need, when I'm saying they need 12. 4 of these spaces, anytime I've done designs, these are basically useless spaces up here in the apex of the site. They're angled. The angled parking is for directional flow, and the direction does not allow exit there. So, that is a very problematic area right there. Also, they're using underground retention, which I realize on the side of the site, it's almost impossible not to do that, but it is a problematic type of stormwater, especially from a longevity and maintenance standpoint. They talk about density. I think you ought to look at, too, what the density is in terms of the percent of impervious on the surface. This site is completely covered up with impervious, except for the landscaping and a couple of islands out here. Again, I'm not really sure how you can take that into consideration in terms of approving or disapproving a rezoning, but I believe that, this is a very problematic intersection. Whenever you've got an acute intersection, you have a lot of challenges, and I'm sure you all have heard about the challenges that this intersection offers. As far as this being appropriate use for the site, I have another person that's going to speak behind me talking about other things that have been proposed in this area that have not been approved prior to the city of Milton, and I'm going to let that individual speak now. Thank you, Mr. Rucker.
There's 5 minutes and 32 seconds remaining.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Heidi Souter. I live at 525 Sunflower Court. And I just want to make it very clear that this is not a case of NIMBY, not in my backyard. The rezoning concerns not only the Bethany Creek neighborhood and Belle Meade neighborhood across the road, it affects everybody that navigates through that intersection in the city of Milton. And over 200 residents, I think it was 239 to be exact, signed the petition, and they either voiced their opinion via petition or they sent you emails. We are supportive of responsible commercial development here in Milton, and we are not against a C1 rezoning on this parcel. We want to make that very clear. The problems that we have with this site is that it is actually very concerning because it is very intense. The emissions station now changes that capture traffic issue now to a destination traffic issue. There is going to be a lot of cut-through traffic because of that intersection. It is a problematic intersection. It's been that way for a long time. If you put this two entrances, one on Highway 9, one on Bethany, people are going to cut through a lot of the time. There is a new high school that's being built on Bethany and Cogburn. The 1 mile radius ends at my neighborhood, and all of the kids that live within that 1 mile radius will have to walk along Bethany Bend to go to the high school. Either that or their parents are going to have to jump in a car and drive them. You're going to have increased traffic there and a continual problem with that intersection. And when you put an intense use like this there, it's just going to complicate matters. Let's see, city staff states that the intensity of the development is inconsistent. You know, you've got residential, it's a suburban road, it'll cause difficulties with residents seeking to navigate the intersection. There are 4 gas stations total in the city of Milton. None of them are located adjacent to single-family residential. They're all in commercial areas. The proposed hours of operation are a big concern for our area. It'll operate in excess of 4 hours more during the day than any of the other commercial that's located on the other 3 corners. The council has acted in the best interest of Milton citizens before. I know at the Coles rezoning in December 2007, there was a gas station that was on that site plan being proposed. The petitioner did remove or withdraw that part of their petition, but council did go on to condition it that gas stations and freestanding fast food restaurants would not be allowed. And the reason for that, and it was in the record, is that of the navigation of that intersection, the concern for pedestrians, and the concern for residents as a whole. And we as a community ask that you also take all of these things into consideration when you go forward and look at this plan. It has a lot of difficulties. I have a lot of additional information, and we do request as a community that you deny this petition this evening. Thank you. I'll request the rest of the time for rebuttal.
The next person is Ashley Bowen.
Got 2 minutes and 26 seconds left.
That's rebuttal time.
Okay, Ms. Bowen doesn't want to speak.
And Mayor, we do have an email from a citizen that has been requested to be read into the record in opposition. Would you like that to use up some of the remaining 2 minutes and 26 seconds?
Hear that, yes.
Dear Mayor Lockwood and City Council members, my name is Tina D'Aversa, and I live at 13568 Waycroft Circle, Milton. I also own 2 other homes in this area. I am writing today to ask that you deny the rezoning and variance request. The proposed use of this parcel is both inappropriate and unneeded. The City of Milton must protect established residential areas like the Bethany Bend and Highway 9 area where this parcel is located. To allow a high-traffic convenience store or an environmentally dangerous gasoline facility in an established residential area would be unconscionable. Many of us have worked for many years to protect the uncontrolled and eclectic development along the gateway to Milton, Highway 9. My family and I support appropriate growth and appropriate development in this area. We look forward to the redevelopment of the area and to having occupants in the 50% of the area's retail that is presently vacant. I am asking that you recommend denial of the gas station use on this property and in the area of Highway 9. There is no need for a gas station on this property. There are gas stations in every direction from the proposed location within a 1 mile radius. There are numerous environmental issues that should cause you to recommend against this use on the property. The property is adjacent to single-family homes and subdivisions. There is no need to risk groundwater contamination in this residential area. Thank you for your service to the City of Milton residents and for ensuring appropriate growth and development in Milton. Tina D'Aversa.
Okay, if we want to ask the applicant, what's our time?
Support, the time remains at 3 minutes and 6 seconds, and the opposition has 51 seconds remaining.
Okay, does the applicant want to use some of that time for rebuttal?
Good evening, my name is Abdul Amir, I'm a traffic engineer. I performed a detailed traffic study and would like to speak to some of the comments relating to traffic. A detailed traffic impact study was submitted to the city and was reviewed by city staff. The salient features I wanted to just bring to your attention is that a convenience store, more than 50% of the traffic, as Mr. Hendricks mentioned, will be passed by traffic, meaning this traffic is already on the road and just turning in to use the facility. That's an advantage compared to any other commercial use that you could potentially put here. So that's one thing that will make new traffic on the road due to this development significantly lesser than other potential developments. We also want to make note that the driveway on Bethany Road, its analysis and recommendations and conclusions in the study were reviewed by staff, and they agreed with my recommendations and conclusions that what improvements we recommend there would work safely. The driveway on State Route 9 itself is a right-in, right-out driveway, meaning you can just turn right in or turn right out. That particular movement minimizes the conflicts. Right in does not create any conflict. Right out, it's the traffic exiting the site that would have to yield to the traffic on the main road. As for the intersection of State Route 9 and Bethany Road, this traffic study demonstrated that the impact due to this development on that intersection is insignificant. Matter of fact, we recommended some improvements to the signal timing and phasing, which the applicant is willing to implement. When those signal timing and phasing improvements are implemented, the intersection operations will actually be better than what you have now after the project is built. Thank you so much.
It's about a minute and 10 seconds remaining.
In closing, just direct yourselves to your comprehensive land use plan. The C1 immediately abutting residential on the easterly side of Bethany Bend Road consists of the triangle that actually is a portion of the 5-odd acres that's contiguous into the south of this. So this property is truly not directly across the street nor contiguous to residential. As far as the pedestrian engagement is concerned, what now with full and complete compliance with your development standards and particularly the standards of the Highway 9 overlay, you're going to have sidewalks, bike paths, and landscape strips that are non-existent right now. So as far as pedestrian engagement is concerned, that will be greatly enhanced over what is existing condition right now. As far as cut-through traffic is concerned, if you put a little garden stand on this, where you would have access over Highway 9 and off of Bethany Bend Road, there would be as much opportunity or lack of opportunity for cut-through as with this use as with any other use that might go on the property. We think that the level of intensity has been markedly brought down from what originally was filed with the application. We think there's been a sensitive response to the comment that has come forward from the community, staff, and planning commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do I have anyone else?
There's 51 seconds.
51 seconds on opposition if someone...
A couple of more items. There is no
Sorry, if you don't
interparcel,
mind.
sorry, Heidi Sauer, 525 Sunflower Court. There is no interparcel connectivity to this site, to the adjacent site, especially given the fact that the only location that could do that is where the admission stall is, and if the cars are queuing up to be tested, you have no way to make a driveway to going to the other site. That's going to be a problem going forward when this other petitioner comes forward and wants to develop their site. They're going to want connectivity to Bethany Bend, hence you'll have another driveway on Bethany Bend. It's going to further complicate things. Additionally, on this site plan that I took off the City of Milton website, there are no storage tanks noted on this site plan. I would like to know where the storage tanks are going to be located. Before that, they were located where the landscape strip was. Now that the variance is gone, so are the storage tanks. I would appreciate seeing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, that uses up the time.
All right. And, again, as I said, if there was anyone else, but if these are no more...
No more comments from...
Okay. All right, I'm going to close this public hearing now and open this up for questions from our council. So both to our staff and also if there's anything from them. Okay, so. Joe?
I have a question for Lynn.
Yes.
Do we have in our ordinances anywhere any type of guidance or restriction that covers the distance from a service station to a residential?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Okay. So technically in Milton, we can build a gas station if it's on the right property next to a residential neighborhood without any distance issues.
With the exception of any buffer requirements between a C1 and whatever the residential zoning district might be. Yes.
Right. That's not real significant. That's 25 feet, 50 feet, or something like that. Okay. When you looked at, when the staff looked at the site plan, did you go into, I'm sure you did, and I'm asking sort of a question that I know you'll have the answer to, the distance, the structure and the makeup of the deceleration lanes and the entrance and exit lanes into the site, and did they meet all of the ordinances that we had set up?
There was a review done by our Public Works Department, and without it being fully engineered, again, this is fairly detailed concept drawing, but without it being fully engineered, they did review it, and it appears to meet all our requirements. That can't be completely known until they actually fully engineer the site and turn in a set of civil plans.
Did you guys look at the turning radius issues related to those entrances and exits? Is that something that you guys took under consideration?
Yes, we did look at those. In fact, I got a revised drawing today, just today, before the meeting, that indicated the path and turning radius of our longest fire trucks, as he had mentioned. So we have looked at those. I don't know how in-depth our review was of that. I would really have to defer that to probably Carter Lucas from Public Works and/or Sarah Leaders.
Okay.
And I believe Carter's here if you need to ask him.
Yeah, there's Carter.
We did look at those turning radiuses on the original site plan that was submitted. Some of the modifications that have been made on this latest submittal, we would certainly re-review those in regards to delivery-type vehicles. Fire marshal will review it in regards to fire access to the site.
Are there any restrictions related to the entrance and exit lanes and the use of the, I guess, the impediment, the little triangle that separates the entrance versus the exit?
On the right in, right out
Yeah.
entrance, there is a standard that it would need to be designed to. And the hope is that you limit or minimize or eliminate the left turn movement out of there. And so the dimensions on that intersection, making that radius wide enough to really promote that right turn is what we would be evaluating.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Karen, you have a question?
Yeah, I've got a question for Lynn. It looks like to me that this rendering and plan that are before us now is very different from the one that staff initially used for their analysis, very different from what the Planning Commission ruled on, and very different from what a lot of these opposition letters we have were originally opposed to. That doesn't mean it won't change at all, but is that the case?
Yes, ma'am.
And typically in this situation, is it really best if this goes back through the whole process again so that we can really get what your analysis is of the current plan and what Planning Commission's recommendation would be of the current plan and what the community's view is?
I do believe that the applicant, as well as the Planning Commission and DRB, would benefit from additional review. Yes.
And it sounds like traffic also would benefit from additional review of the revised
Yes, ma'am. It appears that there are some other alternatives they could consider.
You have more questions? Julie?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We had a couple of questions. We heard obviously that the emissions stall is new. Can you just confirm if that was on the original plan and/or if it is indeed new to this revised plan?
Yes, ma'am. That is new. That was not included in the original, so that would be entirely new.
So in terms of the differential of density, the original proposal was 2,400, so if we were to add that back in, I know there was some discussion about a significant difference. Can you speak to what the actual difference is then between the original and what's now being proposed?
If you add that back in, we're at approximately 70 square feet difference.
Okay, so I just don't know that 70 feet could be couched as a significant differential between the original 2,400 and where we are now. So I just wanted to make sure that we were being clear. And is it also your opinion that the emission stall would be necessary to be counted towards the total density on this parcel?
I think that it should be, yes, ma'am. Like I said, that wasn't included in the original submittal, the changes to this site plan.
Okay. So just to make sure I'm clear, so that 2,400 is effectively the same with the exception of 70 feet. The only difference is that 330 has just been shifted from the convenience store to a different use, but effectively a compatible use, if you will.
Yes, ma'am. With the inclusion of a reduced number of pumping islands, as well as including the full landscape strip.
Right, and I just wanted to focus initially just on that initial density. Going to the question that was posed about a transition policy, while we may not have a distance requirement, I'm very familiar with some of our policy language that speaks to the fact that we do indeed require a transition from a higher intensity of use back to residential. So I do want to make sure that whatever we do as a body here this evening is that we do focus on that transition policy, because I believe that it is a concern not just for this parcel, but for any parcel. The transition is critical when we go from single-family residential and/or multifamily residential to an intensity of use. And I don't believe that whether it's immediately adjacent or within a few hundred feet, I think adjacency is an issue. And if you could speak, Ms. Tully, I know that those presenting mentioned that there was not an immediate adjacency. Could you speak for a minute about the distances between certain points on this parcel and the nearest residential areas?
To be honest with you, I'd have to actually guess or scale it off.
Yeah, just with that being said, but generally speaking, I know there was another acute angle. It looks like a gentleman, I know we've closed the public comment. Mayor, I don't know the gentleman who just stood up, but if there's information, I would just ask that maybe after this evening, or if that could be provided to our staff. But in terms of adjacency, I know it's close. So could you just speak briefly to adjacency of residential areas?
Hey, I've walked that distance. It's about 75 feet from the edge of that property to the closest residential lot. And that's one of the reasons I brought that up.
And that's why I wanted to speak to that, is that it's pretty close.
It's very close.
Yeah.
It's basically the road that separates them, is all it is.
And so that's why I just wanted to speak to it, because I think that the applicant was making the statement that perhaps there was not adjacency, but at least within close proximity, it's within 70 to 75 feet, so that's gives us a feel of the proximity. And so my point would just be that, of course, we want to consider that. It was a great point brought up about transition. It's one of the concerns that I think several of us probably have, but I know I have that concern. Can we address the question that was posed in terms of storage tanks? With the resubmission, or with the newest revised site plan, can you speak, Mrs. Tully, to where those storage tanks are now versus where they were positioned previously?
Yes, ma'am. I believe that they're in the same location. They may have shifted further up the site, further north.
I'm just wondering, so in theory, is the landscape strip over a portion of where that storage tank would be, and then just the access would be?
Is it over the tanks? Is that what you're asking?
I'm just trying to respond to one of the questions, and the fact that we didn't necessarily have that depicted expressly.
I believe that the storage tanks are located on the eastern portion of the site, where the lane of traffic, incoming lane of traffic is from Bethany Road, adjacent to the pumps, but just east of those pumps. On this new site plan, they're not shown, but that's where they were on the original proposal. The engineer is here, and he might be able to better express where those are, and describe where those are.
Would the engineer
To the new plan.
be able to speak towards where the tanks will be located, if they'll be?
Brad Whiffle with AMC. The tanks will be, if you see the 4-car parking in front of the building, the tank storage will be approximately in that zone right there, more towards the back end of those spaces. What happens is the tanker truck pulls in and it discharges the fuel on the passenger side of the truck. So when it pulls in, it's going to be in front of the building, and then the tanks are just to the passenger side.
Okay, thank you so much.
And is everyone clear on that? Yeah. Okay. Need to point it out on the map.
And if I may, Mayor, thank you. Just in going through some of the staff's presentation in terms of things that were the concern, I know that there was discussion about environmental impact. The fact that there's a 70-foot reduction, does that change any of your assessment in terms of the potential negative environmental impact?
At this point, I really hesitate to say. Again, this would all be discussed if we took this back to the Planning Commission. This would be part of the full analysis.
I guess I'll come to a conclusion that would be, since it would be gas station to gas station, some of the same environmental concerns that were noted in the analysis would still be applicable. And I recognize that some of the pumps are reduced, but just for an assessment of the use having not shifted, it would seem that some of the concerns that were denoted in the analysis would obviously still be present because that use had not shifted. And could you speak briefly to hours of operation?
They have submitted in their letter, I believe, the proposed hours of operation.
And again, I bring that up just because I heard that that was a concern. I wondered if we could address that.
Specifically, with the Planning Commission discussion, they had a concern of the number of times a week the fuel was delivered and the number of employees per shift. The applicant did state that they would have 2 to 3 employees per shift. And I will have to look through the letter of intent for their hours of operation. Bear with me.
If it would be the pleasure of the council, I could just ask Mr. Hendricks, because I know you're probably very familiar. If you could just speak briefly to what the proposed hours of operation are. Can I do that, Mayor? Is it matter?
Mr. Hendricks, you want to confirm what the hours of operation that the applicant is asking for?
5:30 to 12 Monday through Saturday, and 7 to 11 on Sunday.
Thank you.
Okay. Alan, your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple, several questions. I apologize. Regarding the traffic study that was done, Mr. Abdul, does the traffic study contemplate proposed development, Union Hill multi-use development that's down the street from Bethany Bend, or for that matter, any proposed exits off of 400 or the new high school or anything like that? Can you please speak to the context of the traffic study?
Yes, traffic study includes traffic from other developers that will grow the existing traffic on the streets in terms of a general growth, increase in traffic due to all developments taken together. And the way we typically do that is establish with consensus with city staff a growth percentage number, such as annual growth of 3%, 2%, 4%, whatever is typically known in an area due to known developments, due to historic patterns, and things like that. And we have included a growth due to other, on top of the existing traffic growth numbers due to other developments such as the ones you just mentioned. So yes, the answer is yes.
Mr. Lucas, could you verify that those developments were included in the traffic study? From my understanding, some of them were not. And that can make a huge impact on the traffic in that intersection.
A general growth rate was included in the information that we had based on the high school's traffic study. We did try and coordinate that with as far as the development down Bethany Bend and the Forsyth County development. I don't know that that was specifically included. I don't know that we have the information to include that, other than to just account for that in a general growth rate that we used in the overall study.
Okay. And could staff speak to the future widening of Bethany Bend as it affects the landscape strip along Bethany Bend and the sidewalk along Bethany Bend and the pedestrian pathways and bike path and all of that along Bethany Bend?
The future widening...
Excuse me, and for that matter, the underground tanks, because if they're, oh, never mind, the tanks are going to be located right in front of the building, okay.
Right. We've got a right-of-way dedication required for this, as well as a right-of-way reservation to account for the future development of Bethany Bend. So Lynn might be able to speak a little bit better about how that landscape strip relates to the right-of-way reservation, but it should either be outside of that reservation or straddling that reservation line to account for that future road widening.
Yeah, I'd like to further, that was a question I had, was some concern I've heard that, in the future, and how the engineer takes that into consideration as far as the city also, in the future, if the road is widened, what that does to our pedestrian activity and our trails and all.
Typically, we attempt to provide the same facilities that were there originally. However, we are pretty squeezed once we get into widening Bethany Road, because the reservation line, again, if you would note on your site plan, the reservation line, you can see there's a dotted line running through the proposed landscape strip along Bethany Road. And it cuts it at approximately half, which is indicative of probably why we were looking at a variance previously, but typically we would require the landscape strip to either remain or to straddle that line. With including the sidewalk, it's going to be a tight design issue to include a sidewalk and a beauty strip, and all to be replaced within what's left of the right-of-way. We have those additional lanes.
Because if I'm reading this site plan correctly, it looks like the sidewalk and pretty much 50% of the landscape strip will be eliminated once the road is widened.
Yes, sir. And that's what I'm saying. We would attempt to try to provide the sidewalk, which would leave minimal screening left and a small grass strip in order to get both the sidewalk and a grass strip between there and the curb.
Okay. In terms of logistics with getting the gas tanker trucks in and out, from my understanding from looking at this new diagram and learning where the tanks are going to be positioned, it looks as if the tanks are basically just going to pull in right in front of the convenience store. And that's pretty much going to block any entrance off of Highway 9 while the gas tanks are being filled. It will allow for huge blind spots for anyone trying to go from the filling part of the development to the convenience store. It would prevent anyone from being able to park or to leave any parking spaces that are there. And then in terms of the 2 to 4 employees, I'm wondering where anybody would even park if you've got 2 to 4 employees that are inside with 10 parking spaces, with the few that are there in the corner near Bethany and Highway 9, basically, from what I can tell, being unusable because they're only being sited in such a way that would make ingress and egress very difficult, but you've also got further congested by an air vacuum pump station. So that's some concerns I have, especially with parking, fill of the tank in general. Talked about widening. Could you show me how you're going to handle solid waste disposal of the site?
Right, before with AEC, you'll see the dumpsters that is between the building and Highway 9. That would be the solid waste.
So could you explain, let's say they'll need to empty this dumpster at 10 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. How would this truck pull into this gas station that's open and back up and have room safely to empty this dumpster? I'm trying to figure out logistically how this big dumpster truck is going to move around this, 10 to 4 employees that are inside with 10 parking spaces. So that's some concerns I have, especially with parking, fill of the tank in general.
Right. Typically, and I'm not sure which direction he's going to be coming in, but, normally he's going to be coming in very early or very late hours. So we figured he can get in there and get out and do what he needs to do in a matter of minutes.
Do you know the estimate on what time you think that dumpster truck is going to very early or very late to be?
I do not.
Because that's the concern also with it being in conjunction or close to residential. There was one other question I wanted to answer, and I'll correct the rest. I'm also concerned with the white in, white out on Highway 9. I'm not concerned per se with it needing to be white in, white out. What I am concerned about is prevention of trying to keep people from turning left or either turning left into the development or turning left onto Highway 9. If I'm not mistaken, this right here cannot be solid, right? This cannot be a permanent fixture here.
Right. Or the chevron or the gold.
This is basically going to be stripes. Okay. Yeah, that's a problem with me, because I don't think that's going to prevent anyone from turning there, which is a big safety idea there. And then one last question, Mayor. Could the petitioner speak to the use of the no emissions booth? And I just want to make sure that I'm reading the application correctly and saying that you are now asking for an emissions check booth there. And there's going to be some queuing that will go on there. So the intensity of the use of the property will be even more so than had you had just gas pumps there.
Yeah, well, and I would like to note that the space is not heated nor air conditioned. It is simply a sidebar accommodation to folks that would be coming and using the filling station in order to be able to effectively get their emissions work done. Your earlier question about the delivery of the fuel, that will be done in the morning if the station is open, so the thwarting of traffic movement in and out would not be a factor.
Could you confirm that time? So the open would be 5:30, so fueling will occur between 4:30 a.m. and 5:30? On Monday through Saturday, and then on Sunday would be before 7 a.m.?
That'd be correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
And the Shell representative is here if you have any questions of him, and also he was here at the Planning Commission, and we would love for this station to be an operation that looked at delivery schedules of 4 or 5 days a week. It's anticipated probably 2.
See, anybody else has Bill?
Yes, sir. 2 questions. One to Lynn. Alan touched on it. It's the emissions bay that's noted on the drawings. Like Alan said, the emissions facility there contemplates more than one vehicle on site at a time. Do we have anything written as guidelines that might increase the need for additional parking because of that facility?
I would have to check the zoning ordinance on that. I don't have that right off the top of my head. My thought is that typically they address it only as if it were a service station, having cars and vehicles serviced. So we'll have to look and double check that against our current definitions as well as the parking ordinance.
Secondly, it's a point of order or information. Typically, when an application comes in front of us, and it has been denied by both community development and the Planning Commission, then another variation that is planned, we don't typically hear a variation of the original submittal. I think what we're doing tonight is preempting that review by both community development and the Planning Commission. I think we're getting a cart in front of the horse. Even though it may seem like we're shifting responsibility, that's in fact where it belongs. It belongs in front of community development again and planning commission, as far as my understanding and the history of this council and community development. I think the whole discussion needs to take place after it's been reviewed again. We may go through the same discussion and the same points are brought up, but I think we've established a policy in this city, and I think we need to adhere to it, just to be fair to all parties concerned.
Would you mind explaining the reason and your process for this to the council, and, with some of the changes and why staff hasn't made any changes on the recommendations and whatnot, just real briefly?
Yes, sir. Just briefly, in my past experience, it's been that planning commission sometimes doesn't get all the information that they need to do the work that they're appointed to do. In that vein, they do the best with what they get. And sometimes their recommendations, once they've made those recommendations and the applicant goes back to review and revise their site plan, a lot of those things could have been taken care of before they ever got to planning commission. In fairness to them, I typically will maintain the staff report as it was presented to planning commission, so that you all get the same information that the planning commission has gotten. Any revisions then would be submitted to you all so that you know that those things have been revised, but staff would not change their recommendations based on those revisions without you all going back and asking for an additional staff report or asking for the planning commission to hear it again. This just allows the planning commission a fair chance to also review the corrected materials, as it were.
So, question, what would staff recommend in this situation where your approvals, denials, or recommendations are based on the initial application? What would staff recommend, once there's, I'll say significant or any changes that address this, what would you recommend?
Again, fairly significant changes, I think, require additional scrutiny. All the questions that you all have had tonight about the revised site plan are good questions, and I can't answer them all. I would be able to do that if it were to go back through the process, so.
Bert, do you have any?
Yeah, I just would, like Lynn, if you don't mind, if you would just kind of hit on the highlights on what the definition of a living, working area is, as it's depicted here on the future land use map.
The future land use map contemplates a mixed-use area. Again, it indicates an area that's pedestrian-friendly, and an area that includes a mix of uses, not just single-family residential or not just commercial. It would be an area that would be vibrant, almost an activity center, as it were. So it's not terribly specific because it's a different kind of zoning. It's a zoning that would be less about the single specific use and more about a combination of uses.
Alan, go ahead if you don't.
I actually have a question and potentially a motion. If this were to go back to the planning commission, would you need until the end of April, or would you need until the end of May?
I believe that we can get this on the April agenda. I'll verify that with Robin, who handles that sort of thing. So yes, we'll get it on the April agenda for the planning commission, and then the DRB would also give this request in the meantime.
Okay, and that's even with spring break? I mean, I know we have schedules and everything, but...
Yes, it's, DRBs remain in spring break.
All right, well, I'd like to make a motion to defer RZ 10-01/DC10-01, agenda item 10-1063 to the April
26 city council meeting.
And I'll second that. Can I amend your motion to state that for the reason to go back to staff and planning commission specifically?
I agree with that, yes, ma'am.
So you're, okay, wait. You can defer to the April Planning Commission meeting. You're actually going to bring it back forward to the council during the zoning agenda in May. Okay.
That's fine. Can we be specific with that, David?
I have the date, I already have it. Good if I get my calendar there.
That's by the day, and make sure that Councilmember Tarts.
So I need to withdraw my motion, if she will allow me to withdraw my motion.
Second, yes.
Okay.
Let's get staff the correct, let's ask for the correct date.
I think the motion would be to defer until the planning commission, the advertised planning commission meeting in April, and then brought forward to the city council the regular scheduled zoning agenda on May 17th.
Okay. And I'd like to make a motion to defer agenda item 10-1063, RZ10-01/BC10-01, so that it can go before the planning commission in April and come back before us at the May 17th council meeting.
And I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Tartt, second by Councilmember Thurman. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please. Joe?
Well, I can't think of, sending this back to staff to take a review and sending this back through the whole process again if ultimately the outcome ends up being the same. I think that's very, very difficult to handle. I can't imagine the petitioners wanting to go through another month and a half of this, or the residents that are involved to go through another month and a half of this. And so my concern revolves all around safety. And I don't see how we're ever going to get this parcel to work as a gas station, given its proximity to the residents in the area. And so I just have a hard time pushing work out into the future that, when we can make a decision today. So I just want to make sure everybody understood that. And I understand that we're trying to follow the right process, and I'm all in support of that, but to me, it's almost like pushing this out is more painful than making a decision.
Julie, I think you had a
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate those comments very much of Councilmember Longoria. I would like to speak to it because I know that there was a comment made that we always go back. I think the distinction has been, both before this council as well as before other jurisdictions, is that it really gets back to, is there going to be a significant difference? And so maybe it's in the vernacular that some of us are using about, is it significant or is it not? When I look at the distinction between intensity of use, I don't know that I see a big difference in the significance when we're talking about 2,370 square feet versus 2,400, when the use is the same, when the proximity and transition policy from single-family residential to a use that's more intense on an acute angle parcel, I would have to agree that to send something back through a process when indeed, at least from my perspective, some of those changes are not significant. The concurrent variance, yes, it went away, but the intensity of use, the proximity to single-family residential, the lack of transition policy, which is a requirement under our mixed-use policies, and the environmental issues that are still there, the fact that you don't necessarily have a mechanism to accommodate the transportation plan going forward based on a master plan that was put before us about seeing Bethany Bend expanded. For all those reasons, and perhaps more that have been articulated, I very much support the comments that were just made, but to send it back simply to go through that process, if some of us don't believe that it's a significant difference, I think would be worthy of consideration.
Okay. Alan, you want to make a comment?
And I do share the same concerns that both Councilmembers Honor Bailey and the others have raised as well, Councilmember Longoria as well, and more that we didn't articulate here tonight because of time or whatever. However, I've heard staff on more than one occasion say that they needed more time to review the application, and I think it's in our best interest legally to ensure that staff provides us with the information that we all need to properly rule in this case.
Milton,
I'll reiterate what I said before, at the risk of flogging a dead horse. We may pass down this trail again, but I think we've established a procedure and a protocol here where we act on recommendations from staff and from the Planning Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, or DRB. And I think it's only for the sake of consistency, I think we ought to stick with that procedure and move forward.
Okay. Joe?
Yeah, sorry, apologize. If we move forward and send it back to staff, I just, in order to make a good decision, I need to know more about the safety impact related to if this was approved, what we can expect. Specifically, I would need to know, what kind of issues we need to consider when that thing comes up. And I would like some input from the fire department, public safety, and others in terms of what we're really looking at if something bad were to happen on this site, because to me, that's the real issue. That's the issue that won't go away. And if it's done after the fact, it doesn't help me make the decision, so.
Is that something that staff can include?
Yeah, and Mayor, if you'll just allow me for a second.
Sure.
Where we are with respect to this one is we had an initial application, and staff conducted a thorough review of that initial proposal. That was the proposal that went to the Planning Commission, which caused them to make a review and decision and recommendation. Certainly, if you all feel as though you have been provided enough information tonight to make a decision, we're fine with that. If you would like a complete staff review of now this new modified plan, and would like the Planning Commission and the DRB to weigh in, that's what a deferral will do, is it will cause us to do now for this new plan what we had done for the first plan. Just want to make sure that's...
All right. Alan, if you want to make another comment.
And along that same vein as Councilwoman Longoria pointed out, needing more information, I really would like more information on item number 7 in staff's analysis about whether the zoning proposal is permitted use that can be considered environmentally adverse to the natural resources, environment, and citizens. And there's a general statement made that it may adversely affect the environment, but there's not any examples given of why. This is an example, the location of the underground detention pond in relation to the tanks is something that I would like to know about and have staff consider.
One last thing, real quick, is I'd like input from the community on the revised plan too, because all the letters we received and the petition recommending, asking us to deny it were all specific to the site plan that had been previously before the Planning Commission. So I want to make sure that we know what the community's input is to the revised. I have a feeling I know what it is, but the fact that this was specific to the current, 6 pumps and current size, I think we need to make sure we understand what their thoughts are.
All right, Bill, go ahead.
And Lynn, to address Alan's point there, item number 7, I'd like to know what provisions are being incorporated to prevent contamination of the underground detention pond where there be a fuel spill on this paved area here. We don't have it topo, so don't know which way runoff runs.
Sorry.
One more.
I just wanted to respond. I saw a lot of heads that were shaking. In deference to the folks that have spent a lot of time coming to this meeting, I know that we are aware that we have received letters, obviously speaking to both the original as well as the revised. I know that as recent as today, we also heard from citizens that spoke at the microphone just a little bit ago, speaking to the revised plan. So I just we do acknowledge the fact that we've gotten letters relative to the revised site plan. I think as Councilmember Thurman was saying, we obviously also received some from those that only spoke to the initial, but we are aware that we've gotten some.
I was talking about the petition here we received, but we received some names.
But we've obviously also received some. I just wanted to respond, because I know that we have heads shaking.
We understand that, and obviously, depending on the council's decision, as we move forward and vote on this, if it is deferred, then they'll have opportunity to give any, if they have any additional comments based on this different information. But at this point, to say, we've got a motion and a second on the floor. I'd like to say all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Passes 6-1 with Councilmember Longoria opposing. Okay, will the city clerk please sound the next item? Thank you, sir.
Next item is ZM 10-01, Birmingham Highway State Route 372, west side, and Crabapple Road, north side, also known as Rayburn, by John Freeman Owens.
Yeah, you know what, we want to just take a couple of minutes for the run to every once in a while, it's sort of sad. So we try how many are here for...
Where do you think will make the most impact?
Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, I used to do this. I forget what I did.
They didn't teach you that in your city manager training class?
So if you put it on 10,
Okay. All right, will the city clerk please sound the next item?
next item is ZM 10-01, Birmingham Highway State Route 372, west side, and Crabapple Road, north side, also known as Rayburn, by John Wheelan Homes and Neighborhoods Inc. to request a product card modification to Z05117 for the following. 1, to modify condition 1D, which currently allows up to 54 townhomes at a maximum density of 0.86 dwelling units per acre to allow up to 47 townhomes at a maximum density of 0.75 dwelling units per acre based on total acreage zoned, whichever is less. 2, to modify condition 1E, which currently allows up to 45 single-family residential units at a maximum density of 0.72 dwelling units per acre, to allow up to 52 single-family residential units at a maximum density of 0.83 dwelling units per acre based on total acreage zoned, whichever is less. 3, to modify the required minimum lot size in condition 1F from 18,900 square feet such that no more than 3 lots shall have a minimum lot size of 10,890 square feet, approximately 1/4 acre or above. At least 3 lots, lots 11 through 13, shall have a minimum lot size of 1 acre or above, and the remaining lots shall have a minimum lot size of 14,500 square feet, approximately 1/3 of an acre or above. 4, to modify condition 2A to replace the revised site plan received by the Fulton County Department of Environment and Community Development on June 7, 2006, with the revised site plan received by the Milton Department of Community Development on February 4th, 2010. And 5, to modify condition 3E to reduce the 15-foot building separation to a 10-foot building separation with a 5-foot side yard setback for lots less than 1 acre. This is agenda item number 1064. First presentation was on March 1st, 2010.
Ms. Tully?
Yes, sir, thank you. Again, this is a site that I believe you all are fairly familiar with, and so I won't go through the specifics of that, but I will skip straight to the analysis. The conditions that they are requesting be modified are 5 conditions. The first 2 are kind of paired together. They're requesting to remove 7 townhomes in Pod A and replace those with 7 single-family homes in Pod B. Basically, that's what they're asking. the modification to decrease this number of townhomes and increase the number of single-family residential lots does not negatively affect the overall site plan. It is a density-neutral exchange. Now, in condition number 3, they're asking to modify the required minimum lot size from 18,900 square feet, such that no more than 3 lots should have a minimum lot size of 10,890 square feet. And that some specific lots shall have a minimum lot size of 1 acre or above, 3 particular lots that adjoin the existing subdivision. The remaining lots should have 14,500 square feet or above. Again, in this particular request, they are reducing the lot size to increase the single-family number of lots. However, I will state that they are concentrating those smaller lots primarily within the inner ring of what is called Haybridge Lane on the submittal. Again, that would be the interior lots to the proposal. So all the exterior lots remain at approximately 30,000 square feet or more in most cases. Again, not all of them, but in most of the outer cases. They are much larger lots. There are 3 smaller lots that are 11,000 square feet, and smaller than those lots that are in the extreme southeast corner of Pod B. And their numbers are number 50 to 52. That's lots 50 to 52. And those lot sizes do range from a little over 11,000 square feet to 14,000 square feet. I would ask that you would note that those lots are adjoining the existing Crabapple Crossroads development and are in an MIX district. So, number 4, modifying the condition that revises the site plan is standard when you revise a site plan, so I don't see any reason to go into that in too much depth. And then number 5 modifies the condition which reduces the 15-foot building separation to a 10-foot separation with a 5-foot side yard setback. Now, the original zoning did have a 5-foot side yard setback, so the original separation would have at least been a minimum of 10 feet. They, however, did condition it to a minimum of 15 feet separation, but they didn't change the side yard setback. In this modification, they're asking to change that and reduce it down to 10 feet. Essentially, this allows slightly larger houses on the small lots than would have typically been proposed and would meet setbacks. The proposed modifications do appear to be in keeping with the overall intent for this development from the Milton County Board of Commissioners' original zoning, and therefore staff does recommend approval of ZM 10-01, parts 1 through 5, with conditions. Please note that among those conditions, condition 4C has been amended by our Public Works Department, and that amendment state, and in fact, if you would allow, I will just reread that amendment, or that entire condition. To provide all road and pedestrian improvements along Birmingham Highway in accordance with Georgia Department of Transportation permit issued November 15th, 2006, or as may be modified and approved by the Georgia Department of Transportation and the City of Milton Public Works Director. Said improvements shall include the relocation and reconstruction of all existing infrastructure improvements that may have been constructed after the Georgia DOT permit approval. All improvements shall be completed within 1 year of this zoning modification approval unless otherwise extended by the Director of Public Works due to conditions outside the control of the developer as it relates to easements, public utility relocations, or other items within this scope of work. And that's the end of that condition.
Okay. Is there any direct questions from our staff at this point from council before we open up? Bill?
Yes, sir.
The modification to number 4C, does that address the right-of-way expansion on Birmingham Highway, on the opposite side of the road? Is that what that speaks to?
No, sir, that speaks to the existing sidewalks and other improvements along Birmingham Road that are in existence, such that those can be replaced.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that wasn't wrapped into this application.
Any other specific questions? And if not, in this hearing, I'm going to ask those speaking in support to go first.
Members of the City Council, my name is Woody Galloway. With Woody Galloway, I'm here representing the applicant, John Homes and Neighborhoods, in this request for zoning modification. As most of y'all will recall, last year we filed a modification similar to this request. We ended up withdrawing that request in order to give additional time for John Wheelan Homes and Neighborhoods to work with the adjacent property owners to deal with the stream buffer restoration project, to deal with prior issues with regard to the proposal. And also to allow time to revise the site plan to bring back that would be more acceptable to the community. We think we have been successful in doing both of those things. An agreement was reached with Mr. Kish and Mr. Anderson on the stream buffer restoration project last fall. As a result of that, in November of 2009, we received approval from the Corps of Engineers for that project. On March 10, basically last week, we received approval from EPD to go forward with the project as well. John Wheelan has now submitted, as of today, the plans of the city to implement that stream buffer restoration project. So that is ready to go forward. As soon as the city approves the plans, they will begin implementation of the stream buffer restoration plan. In addition to dealing with that issue, John Wheelan Homes and Neighborhoods has proposed an improved, modified plan from that which was previously considered. The plan before you tonight seeks to add 7 single-family homes to the site in replacement of 7 townhomes shown on the original approved plan. The total density of the plan remains the same. It is density neutral, so you have 7 more single-family units, 7 fewer townhomes. This plan has been reviewed by Kensington Farms, which is the adjacent neighborhood, by their board and by their homeowners association. And John Glenn, who is the president of Kensington Farms, is here and would like to speak in support of the application.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Jonathan Glenn. I live at 220 Croydon Terrace in the city of Milton, and I'm the president of the Kensington Farms Homeowners Association. It's not going to serve any of us to rehash the long history of this property. I believe the council's familiar with it. I know certainly Councilwoman Thurman, Councilman Rusk, and you yourself, Mr. Mann, are familiar with it. I want to say that all things considered, speaking on behalf of the Homeowners Association, we support the requested modifications before you tonight. We think they are an improvement over the existing plan, and we think it's in the best interest of all concerned that this development go forward, this property get built out. We remain interested in and concerned about the stream remediation and maintenance and ancillary items like landscaping and lighting, but as I said, we do favor the approval of this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
One other brief point, the staff has pointed out the plan as it relates to the outside of the proposal basically remains the same. Lots 1 all the way over through 21, basically the same layout as that approved by Fulton County, except for the fact that Fulton County approval had an amenity area in this area backing up to Kensington Farms. During the approval, that was supposed to be moved and relocated as a part of the approved, or the new site plan that would be submitted with the development. That has been done, but all of these lots remain basically in the same configuration as well as these lots here. An additional lot has been added along this side of the road, one on this side of the road, one here, one there, two there, and one here. That makes up the 7 lots, the 7-lot difference. What that also did, by decreasing the number of townhomes, allowed these townhomes to be wider, bigger, more expensive townhomes than was previously planned for the development. And so we feel like the overall development is much better. It will yield a higher tax base for the city and will be more in keeping with surrounding areas. With that, I'd like to reserve the remaining time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in favor of this that's got a card in?
We have the cards, but they all indicated they represented the applicant.
Okay. So is there any in opposition?
We have one, Jeff Quiche, which I will read into the record.
Okay.
And another gentleman here. To whom it may concern, this is from Jeff Kish at 545 Kensington Farms Drive in Milton, Georgia. It has come to our attention that a rezoning hearing is scheduled for this evening related to the Brayburn subdivision located off of Birmingham Highway, for which John Whelan Homes is petitioning for zoning modifications. These modifications appear to be very similar to the prior zoning request, which was allowed to be withdrawn before a council denial. At the prior meeting, I expressed my concerns over the council's decision to allow JWH to withdraw a petition so that they may return at a later date when opposition is not present. As such, a family emergency has occurred today to where neither my wife nor I can attend. My very concern at the last meeting has come to fruition, rescheduling until opposition can't or won't be heard. Also, the zoning modifications brought to the council increased the density of the development within Brayburn, increased larger units on less acreage while reducing the spacing between units to 10 feet, can only be characterized as an increase in density even as the number of townhomes are decreased. This does not comply with the Crabapple Master Plan. John Whelan agreed to the current zoning and now is asking to modify it to meet his desires. His desires have not included complying with any of the promises to which he has previously agreed. JWH said at the last meeting that he would communicate with us to develop a better relationship within the community. We have received no communication, verbal or written, from JWH about the rezoning. JWH went to our HOA and found neighbors who are not directly affected by his development amenable to change. I respectfully ask that the JWH petition be denied at tonight's meeting and that John Whelan Homes be held accountable for their actions within the community by complying with which previously agreed to zoning restrictions and future development processes. Jeff Kish. And the next person is William Anderson.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is William Anderson. I live at 565 Kensington Farms Drive, and that's a property that's adjacent to the John Whelan development. I can support his proposed changes that have been presented tonight, but I would like to call your attention to several items that are still up in the air. I appreciate very much the update on the stream remediation permitting process. The news tonight is good, and we'll look forward to our streams being restored. I do want to comment on one of the promises that were made in an informal meeting last summer, in which we were told that John Whelan Homes would issue an insurance policy that would carry over to the Brayburn Homeowners Association, whereby they would guarantee the performance of the dams that have been erected over the streams. I'm not aware of whether or not that insurance policy has been obtained, but it does need to be entered into the record that that was a promise made. Finally, on the issue of the sidewalks, that's a fairly recent issue of discussion. I don't believe that the city has yet approached the owners of the property on the eastern portion of Birmingham Highway as to how that land would be obtained. But certainly, we need to have some discussion on that going forward. And then finally, I find it strangely ironical that tonight, with the declaration of Arbor Day, this particular petitioner is coming to you with the request for his development, keeping in mind that he is indeed the same John Whelan who destroyed 60 acres of trees 2 years ago. Thank you.
That's all the comments.
Does the applicant have any rebuttal?
Would like to address as far as there's an issue raised about the insurance policy. There is an insurance policy that protects and ensures the performance of the existing detention pond. The detention pond has been under great stress, as you might imagine, over the last 2 years or so, and has performed and has not had any structural problems whatsoever. We feel like that it is time for this development to go forward. John Whelan is prepared to go forward with the development now. It will get activity started on the site. Trees will be planted as the homes go in, and it will become a beautiful neighborhood. One of the things that I think is important to know as it relates to Mr. Kish is the fact that both Mr. Kish and Mr. Anderson reside to the north of where it says Pond B there. And in that area, those lots have not changed whatsoever. As I indicated earlier, the amenity was in the west corner of the site, but even under the Fulton County approval, it was designed to move south. And so instead are single-family lots that are at least an acre in size. Those have not changed, nor have the lots on the immediate other side of the road up there at the horseshoe. In addition, the variance as it relates to side yard setbacks does not apply to those lots because it doesn't apply to lots that are 1 acre in size. So as it relates to Kensington Farms in that area, there are no changes whatsoever. As it relates to Kensington Farms on the western side of the development, there is, the lots are there instead of the amenity, but the total number of lots along the western side is the same. And so we feel like this is a great improvement. There was a lot of work. Many of y'all spent many hours reviewing the plan, and this is a plan that has substantial change in it from the original proposal, which sought 16 homes, there to be a density-neutral plan, increasing single-family by 16 homes, decreasing townhomes by 16 homes. It was density-neutral. There was a 14-unit plan as well, and now we're at 7 units. So there's a substantial change from the original proposals. A lot of work is going into this, and we feel like it's time for the development to go forward. We would like your help in that regard, and you can help in that regard. So with that, I'll conclude our remarks. Mr. Milton is here. If you have any questions that we have going forward with trying to do the things that came up last time and address the issues.
Thank you. At this point, I'll close the public hearing and open up the floor to council discussion. Do I have any discussion or questions for staff or the applicant from council? Sir?
Yeah, I think the gentleman who is the president of the HOA already left. Is that correct?
He had a lacrosse game, he needed to go for his son.
Okay. Then I have a question for Mr. Anderson.
Yes, sir.
Did you guys vote on this as a HOA, or was it an action that the board came
would you mind coming to the microphone just to make sure the comments are on the record?
William Anderson at 565 Kensington Farms Drive. My understanding is that the homeowners association meeting, which was back in February, had about 20 residents attending, and that they did give approval for plans as submitted.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question while Mr. Anderson's up there. I just want to make sure I understood you when you were speaking just a couple minutes ago, that if some of the other issues that you have spoken to us about before were moving forward, did you say that you do support these changes? Did I hear you right?
I do support the changes with the provisions of the areas of concern that I expressed.
Thank you.
Sir. Okay. Any other questions? Alan?
I just have one. I know that there's been a statement made that the overall site plan is density neutral with the 7 fewer townhomes and the 7 additional single-family homes. Can staff speak to the increase in density on the lot sizes, though? Because if I'm understanding this correctly, although there's an overall density neutral to the site plan, there's an increase in density to the individual lots, with the homes being larger and smaller lots with less spacing in between the homes. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I can speak specifically to the dwelling units per acre for each pod, if that is what you're concerned about.
Okay, before and after.
Yes, sir. Pod A, which is the townhouse pod, reduces the density on 13.72 acres from 3.57 to 3.06 dwelling units per acre. Pod B, which is the single-family portion, increases the density by 7 single-family lots on 48.28 acres. It increases the density from 0.93 dwelling units per acre to 1.07 dwelling units per acre. Now, again, I understand that the Crabapple Crossroads plan has a maximum of 1 dwelling unit per acre. Based on the Fulton County zoning, they did consider that, but what they did was that they included the entire acreage of the site that was being zoned when they calculated the density per acre. So we have done the same in our evaluation.
Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, Jennifer, Bill, you have a question?
Yes, just to bring up the same point that I had asked before, which was the second point that Mr. Anderson brought up, was the right-of-way issue on Birmingham Highway. That's not included in this application.
No, sir. No additional right-of-way is being shown on Birmingham Highway at this point. I would again defer to Mr. Lucas from Public Works as to our master transportation plan.
The condition that was added, that condition 4C, was added to address the sidewalk work on the east side of 372. That'll be handled as really kind of a separate aside issue as we work through easement acquisition with the property owners that are involved with that.
Can you confirm you've worked with those owners?
That process has been going on for about 2 years, and we have gone back and forth with the property owners on the easement documents, and we'll continue to do so until we can acquire those easements.
Okay. All right, Joy, do you have any questions?
Yes, sir, I do. Thank you. I appreciate the input of everybody, applicant and those who have concerns. The concerns that I mentioned the first time this was before us remain my concerns, and that is that the minimum lot size that was approved by Fulton County was for roughly 18,900. And when we talk about density neutrality, I mean, the deceiving part of that, unfortunately, is the fact that in looking at the totality of the land, it takes into account all that land which is not developable. And so it's a little deceiving. And I realize that that's a calculation that can be done. I think that sometimes the more meaningful calculation is when you actually look at that lot size. And you think about when this is built out, are you going to have more house on fewer acres with less space between homes? And the answer is yes. And what was contemplated back in 2005, and we heard outcry from citizens then, that even then, they thought 18,900 was too intense. And yet what's before us this evening is to step that down even further to virtually 10,000 square foot lots, which is about a quarter of an acre. And so it's not that just that we're adding an additional 7 single-family lots, but it's that those single-family lots are more intense. And I'll ask also, instead of just talking generically about Pod A and Pod B, could we, and I hope you have this available because I don't want to ask you something that you have to go calculate it, but in terms of the number of lots within any of these pods that are going to be more intense than what was originally contemplated, the 18,900, your eyes are probably better than mine, and I've looked at this a lot, but could you confirm, based on the revised site plan, how many actual lots are we looking at now that will be in conflict with what was originally approved and what has been the expectation of citizens?
I count 28. I believe it's 28.
So
double check that number.
So as you're whether it's 28 or 27 or 30, I mean, my point being is that when we talk only about swapping out some 7 townhomes for 7 lots, we've increased the number of lots, but we've also significantly impacted the number of lots, and that's somewhere to approximate 30, call it 28 to 30, that are now going to represent a lot size that was never contemplated for this area coming more internal to Milton, which is effectively immediately adjacent to AG1, true 1 acre land lots. And I also want to mention, for those that are looking at this plan, yes, there were some land lots that are discussed as being 1 acre that are adjacent to Kensington Farms. The reality is that the majority of that 1 acre is undevelopable, so that's going to take that house and it's going to push it right next to a house within a separation of 10 feet. And I do think that the separation of 10 feet is not something that we should discount. 10 feet's not much space. I could probably throw a bag of sugar to you, or not, maybe you don't need sugar. But I could throw, something that is of lightweight within 10 feet, and effectively we're saying that throughout this entire development, we're also going to approve a concurrent variance, based on what's been presented to us, that would have every building only 10 feet apart. And the reality is that, again, going back to 2005, 15 feet was a real tough pill for the citizens to swallow, much less 10 feet. And it's not just that one house would only have been 10 feet, it's that the majority, the totality of this development, over 60 acres, would suddenly have buildings only within 10 feet of one another. And so I think we need to think about and remember what that's going to look like once they're built out. Part of what we had talked about when this last came before us was what could be done to revise the site plan to have it be in keeping with the Crabapple Master Plan. And I respect Mr. Weiner and I respect the developments that you do. My request would be that in protection of our citizenry and protection of the Crabapple Master Plan is that rather than to get more dense than what was already approved back in 2005, is that we ask the development to continue, but to continue in keeping what was originally and legitimately approved under Fulton County. Going from almost 19,000 square feet to land lots that are closer to 10,000 square feet, that is a dramatic difference. It's an increase of about 50%, 45 to 50% on some of these land lots. That's a huge distinction in an area that's supposed to be transitioning back to AG1, back to true 1 acre minimums. It's not in keeping with what our citizenry had wanted. And I realize that this has been a long process. A long process shouldn't force us to suddenly say, you know what, I guess we really didn't mean it when we said we were going to stick to the density that was approved. So this council member, on behalf of the citizens that I represent, including those that couldn't be here tonight that provided this letter before us, I represent their interest, and I'm concerned for them and that they've asked that we consider not allowing this to max out at even more density than what was approved. I think it's a concern for adjacent neighbors. I think it's a concern for the precedent that it sets. It's counter to the Crabapple Master Plan. It's counter to what citizens had requested. The impact of that site is significant. And I do believe that we've not gone far enough in terms of addressing Mr. Bell's concerns. He was with us just a few meetings ago, asking that we consider how to handle the sidewalks. I think for this sort of density approval, to presume that that's going to get worked out without the specifics having been defined, I think it's a disservice to those who have asked us to address that concern. I don't think we can leave that to chance. So if this council, in any format, is going to consider proceeding with this request, I think we have to do it making sure that we've addressed the concerns of Mr. Anderson, that we've addressed the concerns of Mr. Buckbell, who came before us a few meetings ago. I don't know that the conditions that have been put before us address that. I appreciate the fact that Mr. Galloway mentioned that there is an insurance policy dealing with the existing detention facility. Has staff received evidence of at least that insurance policy? Do we have that on record? And I'm not questioning that you have it or not. I just didn't know if that had been a part of the information you had received.
We don't have a copy of their insurance record. We do, however, have bonds on all the work that has been proposed thus far.
Because I think, again, going back to Mr. Anderson's point, is I think I hear two different issues. One is there an insurance policy for work done to date. The other is what insurance policies are going to be put in place for the work that has yet to be put into place. And there's a tremendous amount of work that still has yet to be done, because we know that there was a fine of $150,000 imposed on this property because of violations of the EPD and the EPA. And for us to proceed tonight, assuming that there's an insurance policy only dealing with that which was constructed, quite candidly, in violation of state and federal law, I think that we're again doing a disservice to some of the people that spoke to us tonight and to the future of Six Hills and other waterways. I believe we need to have specifics that would also ensure that insurance policies and bonding for those future activities would be done. And we heard from the applicant this evening that some of those procedures have not been finalized. And I know that we have some members of our staff here that are going to be part of that process in reviewing the stream buffers. Staff, could you speak to whether or not we have all of those things solidified in terms of how it's going to be bonded and insured going forward for the stream buffer enhancements or remediations?
Yes, ma'am. Currently, the stream restoration project is in permitting with other entities. They've got to fulfill their requirements with both EPD, the Soil and Water Conservation Commission, and our local district as well, prior to our approval. So we are working through that. They have just recently gotten their stream buffer restoration permit, as recently as a week or so ago, in fact. And when we get the plans in for our review from that permit, then we will also be requiring a bond as we would on any other project.
And so at this point, we have not yet reviewed the stream remediation. It's been approved by EPD and EPA, but we have not yet approved that or permitted it, correct?
That's correct.
And I'll just maybe put this out for everybody's consideration. And I think Mr. Less made Councilmember Less made a point earlier on an earlier rezoning, is that when there's significant information that's still either outstanding or significant information that's not yet been delineated, I think the ultimate permitting of what that stream remediation is going to be, we haven't seen it. I know I haven't received it. I know that many people in this council, myself included, Councilmember Thurman, Rusk, the mayor, others, have been concerned for those citizens. And we haven't been provided that stream remediation work. And while I'd love to just have faith that we've got all the correct insurance in place, I hear from our citizens that they want us to be able to confirm that. I don't know that tonight I've heard that that's confirmed. So I think we need to give consideration to that, especially if we're going to be consistent in how we address it. The other thing that, again, I would request is that we also work through the issue of sidewalks and that we not assume that for a future day. That was an issue that we've heard now from multiple citizens. Again, I think we're saying we hope to work it out, but if you could just confirm, Mrs. Tully, that we have not yet confirmed how we're going to handle those easements and or if we're going to end up with sidewalks on both sides of the road, which is would be consistent with the Chemical Master Plan. Or Mr. Lucas, could you speak to that?
The development agreement would have sidewalk on both sides of 372. And so the sidewalk on the east side, that would be relocated to complete the left turn lane installation, would be required as a condition of zoning that we've proposed tonight, as well as a development agreement that's been submitted by John Whelan Homes. We also have a performance bond in place to do that. We've worked through the easements drawings. I think we have a pretty good idea, or actually we know where the sidewalk will go and the impacts it'll have. And I think those have been presented to the property owners. And so absent any significant requests from the property owners, I think we're ready to move forward with the acquisition of those easements.
So I'm assuming then that means that they're in negotiation of what the value of that would be to them. You said that you've spoken to them. Can you speak to where those discussions are? I'm assuming it's subsequent to then maybe one of the folks that we've heard from recently.
Yes, I'll be honest with you, that's been handled with Sarah through our transportation group, and I have not been personally involved with the discussions with the property owners. But as I understand it, the documents that have been presented, short of one property owner requesting some additional clarification on the impacts of the sidewalk relocation, I'm not aware of anything other than Mr. Bell's comments last week of any opposition to the granting of those easements.
And I guess to your point, Mr. Lee, I appreciate that update. I think to your point, though, is that they hadn't been finalized.
They have not been finalized. We have not acquired those easements as of yet.
And sure, it sounds like there's been some healthy discussion, but if that healthy discussion hasn't resulted in a legally binding conclusion. And I'm just not desirous of leaving those kinds of things to chance based on what we've been hearing. So, in quick summary, I'm very concerned about the increased density. It's counter the Carmichael Master Plan. It's counter to what the zoning was back in 2005. We have at least 28, did you confirm that number? At least 28 lots that would be increasing the density in this area of Milton, and specifically within the Carmichael Master Plan, which is counter and inconsistent with the master plan. We don't yet have a plan regarding stream remediation. Jimmy said we do have that. Want to speak to that real quick? I should say we have not seen that stream remediation.
We received a plan this afternoon.
Okay.
I have not had time to really look at it much.
Okay.
The plan involves a site plan as well as a narrative component to the plan. This type of plan lends itself more to kind of several different methodologies as they go through there, so that the plan is more narrative than it is actually pictorial. So we do have that plan and that process. They just got their state variance. We're not allowed to submit a plan to the commission for them to review until we have all the proper variances and so forth. So having just received that and having just received the plan, we'll be reviewing it for our comments, and then when we get finished with that, it'll be sent to the commission for their review. They'll have approximately about a month to do their review and give comments back or approve it. And then after that approval, they'll also need to go to the Fulton County Shortwater Conservation District Board. We'll go with them to that and through all this process. So we're still probably 2 or 3 months from actual permitting for the stream buffer restoration. It's taken a long time, but the biggest part of that was getting the variance from the state.
Sure, I appreciate that update. That's very helpful. And can you just confirm that, again, you've received that stream remediation plan today and that you've not had a chance to look at? Is that what I think I heard you say?
We got it this afternoon. I'm going to say about 3 o'clock, maybe even between 3 and 4 o'clock. And I haven't had a chance to look at it very much. And if anybody would like to look at it, we'll have it out where anybody that wants to see it can look at it and see what's going to be done, as well as the narrative component to it.
Okay. I really appreciate that. And I guess my point about that is that we've got a case before us that also relates to stream remediation. So I'd ask that we consider perhaps ample time to have our staff review it. We just got it. It's not been reviewed. We don't know what that plan demonstrates. Obviously, we would hope that it's going to be consistent with what our expectations are, but until that's been reviewed by our staff, we don't know what your analysis is going to be. So I'll hold any more comments until others have had a chance to speak, but I would surely hope that we would take that into consideration in the hope that that would be considered before any additional rezoning modifications are made.
Thank you. A couple things. Number one, I want to thank you all for going back and coming up with a plan that I think is much more in keeping with what the community had expressed. Number two, as far as the stream remediation, it's my understanding that that really won't impact any of the current lots, and if it does impact them, y'all will definitely take that into account with and we'd have to come back before us again if it changed anything significantly.
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay. Number 3 is, it's my understanding this plan is considered density neutral based on your calculation and all on this, because it goes based on the square footage, and then that goes based on the number of units per acre, and based on your calculation, it is density neutral.
Yes, ma'am, and that is based, again, on the Fulton County method of calculation that they used in the original zoning.
And it's also my understanding the minimum square footage of houses is going to remain the same. And so that's not changing, because I believe that was a condition of the original zoning?
Actually, I guess the total square footage would grow up because you'd have more single-family.
But the actual minimum square footage for the house and all, so it's going to be the same quality of type home that was.
Yes, sir.
And I know that Councilmember Zonner Bailey pointed out that 28 of the lots were actually decreasing below the 18,900, but it's also my calculation that 26 of the townhome lots are actually increasing in the size based on the switch.
That's right.
You also state as one of the conditions, which was on one of the original conditions, was, I think it stated like 3 of the lots would be 1 acre or more. According to this map, there's actually 9 lots that are 1 acre or more, and that is consistent with what the original plan reflects.
That is correct, and the site plan is a condition of zoning.
So that, there would be 9 lots adjacent to Kensington Farms would all be 1 acre or more, and that was consistent with what the plan was originally, that has already been approved by Fulton County. And it's my understanding, based on the conversations, that this really is, even though we do have some smaller lots, it really is more of a transition from the zoning that is adjacent to it. And you're also transitioning from smaller townhomes to larger townhomes to the single family on the smaller lots to the 1 acre.
That is correct.
So really, from a planning standpoint, this is a better transition than what the original plan.
You recall that where we have the lots primarily were adjacent to Crab Crossing. Those are where the smaller lots are. They're transitioned to the north.
And what are the minimum lot sizes for the Crab Apple Crossing that's been approved? Do you know, to adjacent property?
Quarter-acre lots. So it's consistent with the smallest lots that we have.
So it will be a consistent transition. And I know there's been a comment made that all the houses are going to be 10 feet apart.
No.
How many houses do you really expect to have than just the 10-foot?
I'll let Mr. Wheelan address that. That's done to provide flexibility, so you can have varying house styles. You've got lots that have different topography to try to deal with all of those various issues and to try to provide the best overall product that we can.
I mean, you're going to be building some pretty big houses if all of them are 10 feet apart.
Well, there will be some pretty big houses, but they're not all going to be 10 feet apart.
Not really.
Excuse me, Mr. Wheelan, do you mind stating just your name and address for the record, even though...
Yeah, I'm John Wheelan, and I'm the founder and chairman and CEO of John Wheelan Homes and Neighborhoods, and the petitioner in this case. And I think the bottom line is really that if we could have, we would have submitted the current plan to begin with. It's a much better plan. And much better in terms of transition away from Crabapple Crossing. Still maintains the 4-acre lots against Kensington Farms. That's why I think Kensington Farms is supporting it. And one of the most important facts is the one that's just been raised, that many of the townhomes are wider and bigger. And that is very significant because a number of them now are 40 feet wide. Many homes in like Crabapple Crossing are less than 40 feet wide. So it's going to give more, that allows you to put an owner's bedroom on the first floor, which is very attractive to older people. And we are really committed to high quality, and we're very committed to high quality architecture. And a very unfortunate thing is happening in Atlanta these days, and in home building, and that is a lot of people are going broke. and the banks are taking it back, and then the banks are selling it cheap. And this is happening in Milton. And to developers, who go out and build cheap. And so they are pushing house prices down, your tax revenues down. And we're very focused on an upscale, high-quality development, as we always have been, as we do in all of our neighborhoods. So, I respectfully, request approval of the modification. I think it's good for the city. It's good for us, or we wouldn't be asking. We're honest about that. And we really look forward to doing something that is special. I mean, that's my business. So I'd be glad to answer any questions.
I've just got one other thing.
One other than I'd like to.
Yeah. What is your expected timetable? What I have heard from the community is, they understand the problems in the past. They are ready to move forward. They want this area developed. They want trees planted back there. What is your timetable? And
well, we would start permitting just as soon as we are approved. We are ready to start. We have the financing to start, and we're excited about it. We think there's a demand for high-quality new homes. And so, and then it's up to the marketplace as to, the absorption.
And I will confirm what Mr. Anderson said. I did go to the homeowners association meeting, and I'm the one that made them take a vote, because I felt like it was very important that they have something official for the record that they could present on behalf of the homeowners association, and it was unanimous at that particular meeting. And you're right, only about 20 of them came, but a higher percentage of them come to a lot of meetings, and they were all in favor of moving forward. They really felt like this plan was better than the plan that had previously been approved, that it was a better transition, and that they were in full support of going ahead and approving the zoning modification and getting houses built and trees replanted.
Okay, I think you can, Bill.
I'd like to clear up one issue here, and it's a point that's been dragged into this discussion when it's really something aside from this discussion, and it's the stream restoration. And I understand there's an agreement outstanding between Wheelan Homes, Mr. Kirsch and Captain Anderson, solely for the purpose of restoration of the stream. And this restoration plan has been developed by a professional stream restoration organization. Now, the rest of the process goes through the different reviewing agencies just to confirm and to approve that restoration plan. Typically, and Jimmy's still here, typically what would be the process, or at least maybe you can condense it, what's the probability that would be approved by those agencies, given the fact that it's been prepared by a professional?
The probability of a stream restoration project getting approved after it's got a state variance is pretty good.
Okay.
The only thing that will happen will be if there's some comments on the plans, like put some type of best management practice on the plan, they do that, then it gets approved.
So nothing substantial that you would see going forward from here?
I don't see anything impeding it from getting approved, merely the process.
Okay, so it comes down to the fact that this is a side issue, it has nothing to do with this.
And I'm going to step down and apologize because I may have let this go too far, but point of order, I believe some of these discussions, while they're very important, that we've been making, don't have anything to do with this particular application. So that being said, I will apologize for us getting into that, and I appreciate all the information and whatnot, but we need to stick with this application. And at this point, I've let everyone speak, so Mr. Mayor, any motions to?
I'd like to entertain a motion to approve ZM10-01. And it's, rather than reading it all through, it's agenda item number 10-1064.
And that is for 1 through 5, correct? Modifications 1 through 5. I'll second that.
Including item 4C, which was added.
Has been amended by staff.
Correct.
And I will second that.
I have a motion for approval from Councilmember Lusk, a second from Councilmember Thurman. Is there any discussion?
I have a question.
Sure, Julie?
Mr. Drew, just a quick question of clarity. In the past, when we've talked about this particular case, restoration, EPD, EPA, those have all been things that have been germane to the discussion. Is there anything illegal about having that discussion? Because it's all activity that's occurring on the 60-acre parcel, and I guess I'm just perplexed. I would like clarity before we proceed.
There's nothing illegal about it, Councilman Bailey. It's merely a matter of council discretion as to how long they want the discussion to go on, but there's nothing illegal.
I just want to make sure, it's one thing to say that if you want to end a conversation about something, but to imply that the stream buffer restoration or violations for 60-acre parcels somehow have nothing to do with the zoning, I just would take issue with that, and I just, as a point of order, wanted to make sure at least that I was legally clear as to the impact, because I believe for this council member, stream buffer restoration absolutely has to do with how this will proceed, and however the vote goes this evening, I look forward to Mr. Whelan and your representatives ensuring that the agreements that are in discussion with not just Mr. Anderson and Mr. Kish, but with the entire community, that those be fulfilled. A separate question is, how many homes, I'm sorry, Mrs. Tully, between Six Hills and Kensington Farms, do we have an estimate of how many homeowners are within Kensington Farms and Six Hills?
No, ma'am.
Can I venture to say it's more than 100 homes in Kensington Farms?
I would have to rely on...
Bill Anderson, I'm sorry, I'm just going to ask, can you just, there's a reason for my question, because we're talking about votes.
There's 71 votes.
In Kensington Farms, and then Six Hills, I'm going to venture to say there's at least another 100. My only point, and this is why we have a discussion before a vote, is that to say that 20 members came to a meeting and voted, not knowing if 20 of those may have been from similar households. It may have not been 20 separate and distinct households. Obviously, there's different perspectives within the community, and I remain concerned about increased density as well as some of the agreements not yet being finalized. Final question?
I understand your point, take your point on that. The only thing I would add to it, though, is that all affected citizens in both neighborhoods have the opportunity to weigh in.
Yeah, I believe that. Thank you. My final question has to do with trees. I'm wondering, because trees on this 60-acre parcel have been a continued concern for citizens, did staff, or did Mark Law, or did Jimmy, did anybody take a look at the opportunity to enhance the number of trees planted on this parcel before agreeing to or recommending increased density on this parcel? Has this been a consideration? We talked about it, and we have Arbor Day today, and I'm just wondering, did anybody take...
Point of clarification, the staff has said that based on their calculation, it is not increased density, so I don't think we can use increased density as a fact when staff has stated that it is not increased density.
Like the neutrality of density and how you arrive there, I'll rephrase my question.
Stop right here. What was the question about trees?
Yes, sir. My question to our city staff specifically, and I'll ask our Director of Community Development, our city manager, was part of the consideration of this evaluation whether or not there was an opportunity to request either larger caliper trees and or more trees to help mitigate the concerns that we've continued to hear over the years.
We did not make any changes to the tree plan that has been originally submitted.
With that, I'll just ask for those that made the motion and seconded the motion to give consideration as to whether or not an added condition for consideration of adding additional tree coverage, especially in light of the fact that we just had a proclamation this evening about Arbor Day and the fact that we're now a tree city. I think we have an opportunity this evening, if we're going to increase lot size or density per lot, we have an opportunity to also look for some increased tree coverage there in Crabapple. And with that, I appreciate that, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion to approve by Councilmember Law, second by Councilmember Councilmember Thurman, based on staff's recommendations. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So it's that's 6-1. Councilmember Bailey is in opposition. Okay, there's no items under unfinished business. We're going to move into new business. Will City Clerk please sound the item?
Approval of a technical assistance grant submission, ARC Community Children's Assistance Program. Milton, this is agenda item number 1080, discussed at staff reports on March 1st, 2010.
Mayor and Council, I'm going to take this one tonight. I'll give you a little break here so she can have some water. This is really, it's placed here in new business. This probably could have been placed in the consent agenda based on our staff report that we had at the March 1st meeting. This is what we discussed at length and came to a point where we decided on what we were going to initially make an application for. This tonight is just simply to ratify that action that we discussed at the March 1st council meeting. If you have any specific questions that have come up since March the 1st, I'm happy to answer them. This truly is just an effort to ratify that signature page that you all did on March the 1st.
Okay, is there any questions for Chris on that item? And if not, do I have a motion and a second?
I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number 10-1080.
Second. All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Hewitt, second by Councilmember Tarr. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Let the record show that Councilmember Thurman was not, did not vote on that item.
She's not here. I keep telling them. Okay.
The monitors. Okay, we're going to move on to...
Just a point of order, is that allowed?
Well, preferably you wait till the individual comes back, and the individual's here now. So to the extent that the mayor can ask for her to record a vote, that would be appropriate.
Ken, could I ask that, I understand you didn't hear the discussion.
Whatever you say. Sure. Did somebody make a motion in favor of it?
Yes.
And I assume it was whatever we had discussed last time? I'm all for that.
All right, it's unanimous.
And technically, to Councilmember Tartt's point, the rule is that unless you have an actual bona fide basis to recuse, you have to vote if you're here, so it's a fair call.
I had a pretty good reason.
Maybe I'm just a little tired, you know?
I understand.
All right. Do we have any council reports?
No, I hate to interrupt you, I'm sorry. We added by motion and vote an emergency item to be considered.
My bad, exactly, I was thinking it would be under reports, but you want to go ahead?
I'll go ahead and sign it if I can find my sheet here, and then I'll let the city attorney do the presentation. This is an emergency addition to the agenda for resolution of the City of Milton, Georgia, enacting a moratorium for 60 days to bar the acceptance of applications for conditional use permits for telecommunications facilities and all zoning classifications.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, let me take that over and let me just say that with respect to the header there, and I think in the body of it, the resolution that is appropriate, conditional use permits, but we don't need conditional use necessarily in front of it. But this is, in fact, an emergency resolution with respect to a 60-day moratorium on accepting any additional telecommunication tower permit applications. Our rules, first of all, allow that in the event of an unforeseen or sudden situation that arises, that we have the right to add something without the requisite 7 days prior to the hearing. Tonight's hearing, as you know, we already have various telecommunication permit applications in the hopper that we are currently processing, and I will say that there has just been some additional information that has come to the city manager that has made us concerned that there may be some more. And in light of the fact that we are now sort of testing and having some experts that we have retained, you all know we have retained some experts to assist us with those applications that are pending, in light of the fact that we have those individuals working with us and we're able to work through this process, we have come up with some additional things that we believe need to be brought to bear in the telecommunications ordinance to make it the best, most protective ordinance that it can be. So this is all good stuff. But in the meantime, while we're doing that and going through the protocols to potentially amend that ordinance,
we need to make sure the status quo is preserved, and that's why you adopt a moratorium. And a moratorium of this nature can be adopted on an emergency basis without a bona fide public hearing. And there's case law, quite frankly, out of our sister, the city of Roswell, set a lot of the case law for that with respect to some billboard moratoriums. So this is a similar thing that we are doing this evening. 60 days is appropriate. I'm comfortable with 60 days. Any longer than that, I'll come back to you and we will actually have an advertised public hearing, and we will extend it longer than 60 days if that's what we want to do. But the city manager called me, we talked about it, we've talked with Lynn about it, we have had our experts on the phone talking about it, and I think we have, at least from a staff level, a unanimity of direction on this. We think this is the way to go to protect Milton. So basically, let me just walk you briefly through the resolution, and then you all can ask any questions you want to. This resolution basically has some whereas clauses. Certainly you can read for yourself, but in the era of digital wireless telecommunications, and given the demographic in Milton, given your citizens' need and want for wireless communication and information products, it's happening. And there is a need for more and more of these telecommunication facilities in Milton, and we're seeing that on a day-to-day basis, and your city manager and your planning director are seeing that. So we are acknowledging that in the whereas provisions. We acknowledge in the third paragraph down that we have, in fact, a city code, but we also acknowledge, going down to the enumerated A, B, C, D, etc., that we want to modify that code to make the protections available better. Very common that you draft something, then you look at it in practice, and you see how it's working, and then you get people like Mr. Gilley and some of the folks that we have retained to give us ideas and things that are working, maybe things that aren't working so well, and that's the sort of feedback that we're all getting. And so our recommendation is look, we want to accommodate the communication needs of Milton, residences and businesses, but also your job is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Milton as well. We want to assure an appropriate pattern of Milton sightings, S-I-T-I-N-G-S, sightings for these towers. We want to facilitate wireless communication facilities. We do, and I think the law of the land says we should facilitate those, but we want to do it in a responsible manner. And that's another reason why we want this moratorium. We want to minimize the adverse visual effects of these towers. We want to safeguard Milton's remaining agricultural and equestrian areas. We want to avoid potential damages to properties to ensure that we have the requisite setbacks and buffering around these towers. We want to ensure that the fee that is assessed by the City of Milton is an appropriate fee that actually captures the cost of processing. And if there was probably one significant deficiency in the ordinance we just passed, and that is the fee is not high enough. These things are expensive to process and expensive for us to get the expert and the technical expertise we have to be able to make sure that we are protecting the citizens of Milton, we are able to identify coverage gaps, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to make sure that fee is raised a little bit. And we want to maximize co-locations. We want to make sure that we also have the technical expertise that if a co-locate will do it instead of a new tower, we want to make sure that happens. So based upon those factors, based upon your need to focus on the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens, and further based upon the law that allows you to adopt a moratorium to maintain the status quo while we go through some of the machinations to do a new ordinance, this would provide for an immediate 60-day moratorium on permit applications for cell towers. Again, like I said, we will then take our direction, we'll work on this on our side, and if I need longer, I'll actually have a public hearing, we'll comply with the Zoning Procedures Act, and I'll extend it some more. Mr. Mayor?
Okay. Any questions for Ken, Julie?
I just wanted to confirm that 60 days satisfies you. It's just enough, but not too much.
It's the porridge, yes. It's just enough, but not too much. That's
May I
correct.
have a motion after everybody's spoken?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go.
I'm ready to second. Go ahead. I'll put forward a motion that would approve a resolution of the City of Milton, Georgia, enacting a moratorium for 60 days to bar the acceptance of applications for conditional use permits for telecommunications.
Councilman Gonzalez, can I say something?
Please do.
Excuse me for that. Could you say for just permits and leave off the conditional use? And that's my apologies to the council for that.
Yes, sir. I will restate my motion.
Thank you.
I move to approve a resolution of the City of Milton, Georgia, enacting a moratorium for 60 days to bar the acceptance of applications and permits for telecommunication facilities and all zoning classifications.
And I will second that.
We have a motion by Councilmember Bailey, second by Councilmember Thurman. Any discussion?
One question.
Councilmember Tartt?
I have one question. To ensure that we don't get challenged on this, and just assume we don't have to even ask for public opinion or public comment,
The question is, and again, I can't assure you we won't get challenged on it.
but I'm just thinking in terms of the mayor even asking if there's public comment, which there probably isn't, but I just want to make sure we don't have to ask that.
We could certainly open it up, if, even during this time of council discussion, see, just for the record, if there's anybody that wants to speak on this. I will say that from the standpoint of moratoriums, one of the whole things about moratoriums is, particularly the first one, a lot of times they are an emergency basis because they're the government responding to something to quickly preserve the status quo while we catch our breath. So I'm not concerned about there not being public notice. Now, the next time we do one of these, if we have to extend it, you can rest assured you'll be having public hearings on this. But, Councilmember Tartt, if we have no public comment tonight, I'm still comfortable with this going forward.
Okay.
Mayor, thank you. I just wondered, do we have to have a specific date, rather than referencing simply 60 days?
It would be 60 days from the date of this evening's action.
I just modified my motion, if I may, or to clarify, this resolution is 60 days from tonight's meeting, which is dated Monday, March 15th at approximately 8:25.
And I will second that amendment.
Okay. Do we have any more discussion? Councilmember?
I think that's redundant. The last paragraph so states that.
Thank you, since we didn't get to read this first, and I appreciate
All right, well, I
that.
think we're clear on the motion and the second that we have and the intent here. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay.
Sometimes we have to have it dates.
Now, if we can move on, is there any council reports? Anything anybody on the council wants to report on tonight?
Spring is in the air.
I'll move on to staff reports.
Mayor and Council, I don't have an abundance of staff reports for you today. I had a fairly straightforward day, I thought, when I walked into the office, and about 11 o'clock this morning, it took a direction that I wasn't really planning on going, and that worked me all the way up until this meeting. So I don't necessarily have one. I thank you all for your time over the last couple of weeks when I've gotten the opportunity to meet with you individually. That has been helpful. I look forward to encouraging you on occasion. Let's do those regularly. I will tell you that we did have one published staff report tonight. I've reviewed the staff report. The staff report is prepared. Staff prepared it. I've reviewed it. It is a bit lengthy. So what I asked at the approval of the meeting agenda is not to necessarily just defer the item because we're not ready, but is to go ahead and pass out our staff report to you tonight, give you a week, because we do come back a week from tonight for a special called meeting with CPAC. Ask you to at least digest some of the information that we put in our staff report so that maybe we can have a meaningful discussion about it as opposed to it being haphazard tonight. So that will tie up the loose end on that. Cindy will hand those out as we leave tonight. It'll give you something to think about over the next week.
Any other staff reports, Mr. City Manager?
No, Mayor, that's what we have.
Okay. Then I'd like to conclude this meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second. We've got a motion by Councilmember Clark, second by Councilmember Hewitt, that we adjourn this meeting. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous.